The night of April 10, 1995 in Munich was deceptively calm. Streetlights cast long, eerie shadows across the cobblestones, and the distant hum of trams echoed through empty streets. A young woman named Sonja Engelbrecht stepped out of her familiar routine, unaware that the night would mark the beginning of an enduring mystery. Sonja was 19 years old, a young woman of vibrant energy, intelligence, and curiosity. Friends described her as cheerful, compassionate, and full of dreams that stretched far beyond Munich's city limits. She loved to read, spent hours sketching, and had an insatiable curiosity about the world. Her life, though ordinary in some respects, was a tapestry of relationships, ambitions, and daily routines that made her deeply human and relatable. The city of Munich in the mid-1990s was bustling yet intimate. Trams rattled over cobblestone, streets, local cafes bustled with conversation, and parks offered quiet reprieves from the urban noise. The city was a mix of old and new, with centuries-old buildings sharing streets with contemporary shops. For Sonja, Munich was both home and playground, a city where she felt safe and connected. Sonja's family was close-knit. Her parents, supportive and loving, encouraged her studies and ambitions. She had a younger brother with whom she shared playful rivalry and deep affection. Her friends described her as a loyal companion, always ready to lend a hand or share a laugh. This network of relationships provided the foundation of her life, the community she relied upon and the people who would later search frantically for her. On the evening of April 10th, Sonja spent time with friends at a local cafe near Munich's city center. They laughed, shared stories, and talked about plans for the coming week. By around 9 p.m., she decided to leave and head home. Her departure seemed ordinary, routine. She wore a simple jacket and jeans, carried a small bag, and walked with confidence through the familiar witnesses reported seeing her at the tram station, checking the schedule as she waited. Some described her pausing near an alley, looking around as if she sensed someone or something was nearby. Yet none of these small details suggested danger. She appeared calm, collected, and unaware that the night would soon unravel into tragedy. By late evening, Sonja had not returned home. Her parents tried calling her mobile, but there was no answer. Panic began to set in. Friends were contacted, but they too had no information. The first seeds of fear took root. Around midnight, the family contacted local authorities, reporting Sonja as missing. Munich's police, trained to respond quickly, mobilized to retrace her steps and initiate the first search efforts. Police officers scoured the immediate vicinity, tram stations, cafes, parks, and streets she was known to frequent. Canine units were deployed to try and pick up a scent, and flyers with her photograph were distributed across neighborhoods. The city became alert, residents glancing at each passerby with concern, hoping to see someone who might know something. Interviews began immediately. One neighbor claimed to see a young woman matching Sonja's description, talking briefly to an unknown figure near a street corner. Another reported a fleeting glimpse near a park. Details were inconsistent, sometimes conflicting, creating a haze of uncertainty. Each account was scrutinized, cross-referenced, yet no solid lead emerged. For Sonja's parents, every moment without news felt unbearable. Fear, anxiety, and hope mingled in painful tension. They organized neighborhood searches, distributed flyers themselves, and reached out to local media. Friends held vigils and scoured the streets, desperate for a sign, any sign, of her safety. Munich's residents joined in. Local cafes, shops, and public areas displayed missing person notices. Volunteers patrolled streets, parks, and transit routes. The city's collective concern underscored both the horror of the disappearance and the compassion that arose in response. Yet despite these combined efforts, Sonja remained unseen, her whereabouts unknown. The investigation faced immediate challenges. Munich, though familiar to Sonja, was a large city with countless streets, alleys, and possible escape routes. Witness accounts were inconsistent, and the lack of CCTV in many areas in 1995 hindered tracking. Each potential lead had to be physically verified, slowing the process. Despite meticulous police work, the first hours and days yielded no conclusive results. Every unanswered question amplified suspense. Was Sonja alone, or had she encountered someone dangerous? Did she meet a stranger? Or was this an accident? The city seemed quieter than usual, shadows longer, and each passing hour intensified the unknown. The audience feels the mounting dread, understanding that what seems like an ordinary night could conceal an extraordinary and tragic story. By the end of the first night, Sonja Engelbrecht had vanished from sight, leaving only questions behind. The city, her family and friends were thrust into uncertainty, beginning a journey that would span decades. Her story was now more than a disappearance. It was a mystery, a case that would haunt Munich for years to come. The stage was set, suspense established, and the audience was drawn into a story of fear, hope, and relentless search for truth. On the quiet streets of Munich in the early 1990s, Sonja Engelbrecht grew up surrounded by both the comfort of her family and the vibrancy of the city. From a young age, she exhibited a curiosity about the world that set her apart. She would spend hours drawing, reading, and exploring the small parks near her home, always asking questions and seeking to understand the stories behind the people she met. Her parents provided a nurturing environment. They encouraged her creativity, supported her education, and took pride in her empathetic nature. Sonja's father, a meticulous man with a love for detail, often shared stories about the city's history, pointing out the architecture and cobblestone streets as more than just scenery. They were lessons in life. Her mother, warm and patient, fostered a home filled with laughter, learning, and the freedom to explore. Sonja's younger brother looked up to her, sharing games and conversations that strengthened their bond and created memories that would last a lifetime. School life was another cornerstone of Sonja's world. She was diligent, curious, and well-liked among peers and teachers. Her interests spanned literature, art, and science, reflecting a mind that sought balance between creativity and knowledge. Friends described her as thoughtful and compassionate, someone who would pause to help a stranger or comfort a classmate in need. She was a confidant, a listener, and someone who brought warmth to those around her. Outside of school, Sonja had a tight-knit group of friends with whom she explored Munich's neighborhoods, cafes, and parks. They shared secrets, ambitions, and dreams of the future. These friendships provided her with both joy and security, and her personality made her a natural connector among people. She had a way of making others feel seen, a quiet charisma that drew people into her world. The city itself became an extension of Sonja's character. Munich's blend of history and modernity mirrored her own dual nature, grounded yet ambitious, thoughtful yet adventurous. She knew the city's streets well, familiar with shortcuts, hidden gardens, and favorite spots where she would retreat to sketch or read. Each corner of the city held memories, stories, and a sense of belonging. Her teenage years were formative, filled with small achievements, learning experiences, and moments of personal growth. She took part in school events, art exhibitions, and community programs, always engaging with a curiosity and openness that inspired those around her. Friends and family recall her laughter, the way she would light up a room, and her unerring ability to find beauty in ordinary moments. Sonja's dreams stretched beyond the immediate. She imagined traveling, studying abroad, and exploring different cultures. Her notebooks contained sketches, reflections, and musings about life, demonstrating a mind eager to understand the world. Yet despite her aspirations, she remained deeply connected to her family and community, grounding her ambitions in a network of love and familiarity. As the spring of 1995 approached, life for Sonja was filled with the ordinary joys and routines of a young adult. She spent evenings with friends, attending local cafes, parks, and small social gatherings. Her parents watched with pride as she navigated the transition from adolescence to adulthood, confident in her ability to make thoughtful choices while exploring independence. To the outside world, it seemed like any other year, filled with laughter, learning, and promise. Her friends remember the night before her disappearance vividly, recounting the conversations, the laughter, and the plans made for the following week. There was no indication that anything unusual was about to occur, no hint of the tragedy that would soon unfold. Sonja went about her evening like any other, unknowingly stepping toward a path that would leave her family and city in profound uncertainty. The contrast between her vibrant life and the darkness that followed heightens the poignancy of her story. The ordinary moments, the chats with friends, the walks through familiar streets, the sketches and writings, serve as a reminder of what was lost and why the case resonated so deeply with those who knew her and the wider public. Through understanding Sonja's personality, habits, and environment, the audience can form a connection to her as a real person, not just a missing individual. The depth of her life, her relationships, and her ambitions provides context for the emotional weight of her disappearance. This narrative is essential to grounding the story, ensuring that viewers feel the human cost of the mystery that begins to unfold. Even in retrospect, it becomes clear that Sonja's life was rich with experiences, relationships, and potential. Her curiosity, compassion, and intelligence made her remarkable, and the sudden interruption of this life by her disappearance created a ripple effect of concern, fear, and sorrow throughout Munich and beyond. The audience, now familiar with who she was and the world she inhabited, is prepared to follow the events leading to the fateful night when she vanished, setting the stage for the unfolding investigation and mystery. The evening of April 10, 1995, began like any other for Sonja Engelbrecht. She met friends at a familiar cafe in the heart of Munich, sharing laughter, stories, and the light-hearted banter of youth. The conversation flowed easily, touching on school, work, and future plans. Time seemed to pass unnoticed, the city around them continuing its quiet rhythm as the sun set and shadows lengthened. Around 9 p.m., Sonja decided to leave, saying her goodbyes with a smile that would be the last seen by those closest to her. She walked through the city streets with a natural ease, navigating familiar routes with confidence. Her path led her past tram stations, cobblestone alleys, and small parks, areas she knew well and felt safe in. Yet unknown to her, the ordinary familiarity of her surroundings would soon turn ominous. Witnesses later recounted seeing her at various points along the route. At one tram station, she appeared to pause, looking around as if sensing something unusual. A local resident noted a brief encounter with an unidentified figure nearby, a detail that seemed insignificant at the time, but would later form part of the puzzling narrative of her disappearance. The fleeting nature of these moments made them hard to verify, yet they contributed to the growing mystery. By late evening, Sonja had still not returned home. Her parents, initially patient and trusting, began to grow concerned. Attempts to contact her by phone went unanswered, and messages were left with friends who had seen her earlier. Panic began to set in, an invisible thread of anxiety weaving through the lives of those who loved her. The first search efforts began within hours. Police officers canvassed the immediate area, checking tram stations, cafes, and parks. Canine units were deployed in hopes of tracing her scent, while local volunteers scoured streets and neighborhoods. Flyers with her photograph were distributed, and public announcements requested information from anyone who might have seen her. Despite these efforts, tangible leads were scarce, and each passing hour increased the tension. Interviews with witnesses revealed conflicting accounts. One neighbor reported seeing a young woman matching Sonja's description, speaking briefly to a stranger. Another recalled a figure moving quickly along a park pathway, glancing back as if aware of being followed. These fragmented recollections created a fog of uncertainty, complicating the initial investigation. Each potential clue had to be carefully weighed, cross-referenced, and investigated, a process that consumed precious time. Meanwhile, the emotional strain on her family intensified. Every moment without news was excruciating. Her parents organized neighborhood searches, spoke with neighbors, and reached out to local media for assistance. Friends and classmates joined in, driven by worry and the desire to find her. The city seemed to pause in shared concern, the streets filled with those hoping to catch a glimpse of Sonja or uncover a lead that had been overlooked. Police faced significant challenges in these early hours. Munich, though familiar to Sonja, was a sprawling city with numerous possible routes she might have taken. The lack of surveillance cameras in many areas limited the ability to track movements. Witness statements were inconsistent, and each tip required careful verification. Investigators worked tirelessly, aware that the first hours of a disappearance are often the most critical. As the night progressed, the mystery deepened. Questions multiplied. Had she been seen by anyone she knew? Did she encounter a stranger with harmful intent? Or had she simply lost her way? The answers remained elusive, leaving a void filled with anxiety and fear. The ordinary night had become a crucible of uncertainty, setting the stage for what would become a long, drawn-out search. By the early hours of April 11th, Sonja Engelbrecht remained missing. The city that had felt familiar now seemed fraught with tension. Each shadow, each passing figure became part of a narrative of concern, speculation, and fear. Friends and family stayed awake, scanning the streets, making calls, and hoping against hope for a sign of her safety. The first day of the search passed without resolution. Police continued to pursue leads, canvass neighborhoods, and follow up on witness statements. Volunteers maintained a visible presence in parks, streets, and public spaces, keeping the search active and public awareness high. The uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone involved, an emotional burden compounded by the realization that a young life had vanished without explanation. As the sun rose, the city faced the grim reality of Sonja's disappearance. What had begun as a routine evening was now the starting point of an enduring mystery. Each detail, each observation, and each unanswered question contributed to a complex narrative that would unfold over decades, captivating the public and challenging investigators in equal measure. The story of Sonja Engelbrecht's disappearance had begun, marked by ordinary movements transformed into extraordinary uncertainty. Every street, every witness account, and every passing hour added depth to the mystery, ensuring that her absence would not go unnoticed and that the search for answers was only just beginning. The morning after Sonja Engelbrecht's disappearance marked the beginning of a formal police investigation, one that would face numerous obstacles from the outset. Officers arrived at her family home, listening carefully as her parents recounted the previous evening. Every detail, from the last known sighting to minor changes in her behavior, was meticulously recorded, though investigators were acutely aware that memory could be unreliable under stress. Police began canvassing the areas Sonja was known to frequent. Cafes, parks, and tram stations were checked, and local residents were interviewed. Canine units attempted to trace her scent, but the urban environment, combined with the hours that had already passed, made it difficult. Early investigative efforts focused on establishing a timeline, pinpointing locations where she had been seen, and identifying anyone who might have had contact with her that evening. The initial investigation revealed the challenges of missing person cases in the mid-1990s. Munich did not have the extensive surveillance infrastructure of modern cities, meaning there were no cameras to track Sonja's movements. Records were kept on paper, communications were slower, and coordinating with other departments required considerable effort. Each lead required physical verification, a labor-intensive process that tested the limits of the investigative team. Interviews with friends and acquaintances yielded limited information. While many could confirm her presence at the cafe and her usual routines, no one reported seeing her after leaving that location. A few witnesses mentioned seeing a stranger near where Sonja had walked, but descriptions were vague and inconsistent. Each tip had to be carefully evaluated, and false leads were a constant challenge, consuming time and resources that could have been spent elsewhere. Media attention began to grow within days. Newspapers reported on the disappearance, including photographs and personal details about Sonja, emphasizing the concern of her family and community. While this raised public awareness and encouraged tips, it also introduced complications. Speculation and sensationalism sometimes overshadowed factual reporting, creating noise that investigators had to filter through. The police faced additional difficulties in coordinating search efforts. Volunteers and community members were eager to help, but organizing large-scale searches across urban and rural areas required careful planning. Every alley, park, and transit route had to be systematically examined, a process complicated by the sheer size and complexity of Munich's streets and public spaces. Despite these challenges, investigators worked tirelessly. They reconstructed Sonja's probable route home, checked public transportation logs, and retraced her steps with the hope of finding overlooked evidence. Each day without new leads increased tension, both within the family and among law enforcement personnel, highlighting the emotional weight of a case where every hour was critical. Psychological profiling, though in its early stages at the time, became a component of the investigation. Experts considered whether the disappearance could be voluntary or if foul play was likely. Theories were formed, discussed, and sometimes discarded as new information emerged. The lack of definitive evidence made each decision fraught with uncertainty. Community involvement remained strong. Residents continued to distribute flyers, share information, and keep an eye out for anything unusual. Local authorities held briefings appealing for public assistance. The collective vigilance reflected both concern for Sonja's safety and recognition that every detail could be crucial in the unfolding investigation. As the days passed, the investigation expanded. Officers reviewed missing person cases from surrounding areas, looking for patterns or connections. They checked hospitals, shelters, and transport hubs, hoping for a sighting or report. Every piece of information was scrutinized, yet the elusive nature of Sonja's disappearance made progress slow and incremental. The early investigation, while comprehensive, underscored the limitations of the time. Physical evidence was scarce. Eyewitness accounts were often contradictory, and the urban environment complicated efforts to track movements. Despite these hurdles, law enforcement demonstrated commitment and persistence, laying the groundwork for what would become a long and complex case. In the absence of immediate answers, the family and community remained vigilant, supporting police efforts and keeping Sonja's story in public consciousness. The challenges faced by investigators in these early stages would set the tone for the case's future, highlighting both the dedication required and the frustration inherent in pursuing a missing person whose trail seemed to vanish into the city night. As weeks turned into months, the disappearance of Sonja Engelbrecht began to transition from an active search to a cold case, a shift that carried with it a sense of despair and frustration for all involved. Investigators had meticulously followed leads, retraced every known step, and examined countless tips, yet no definitive breakthroughs had emerged. Each passing day reinforced the uncertainty, leaving Sonja's family in a state of enduring anguish. Media attention played a significant role during this period. Newspapers ran stories detailing her life, the circumstances of her disappearance, and the ongoing search efforts. Television programs occasionally covered the case, bringing it into the living rooms of citizens across Munich and beyond. While this coverage kept the story alive and encouraged public tips, it also contributed to speculation and rumors, which investigators had to sift through carefully. The community's involvement persisted despite the lack of immediate results. Volunteers organized search parties, revisited parks, alleyways, and other locations Sonja had been known to frequent. Flyers continued to be distributed, and public appeals emphasized the need for any information, however small. The city, once bustling with curiosity and concern, now carried a quiet tension, the memory of Sonja's disappearance lingering in the collective consciousness. During these cold case years, investigators revisited old leads with renewed perspective. Advances in technology, though still limited compared to today's capabilities, allowed some reanalysis of evidence. Witness statements were re-examined, cross-referenced, and evaluated for inconsistencies. Any overlooked detail from the initial investigation was reconsidered, highlighting the meticulous nature of long-term investigative work. The psychological toll on Sonja's family and friends was profound. Days of uncertainty turned into years, each anniversary a reminder of unanswered questions. Support networks and counseling services provided some solace, yet the emotional strain remained heavy. The family continued to advocate publicly, participating in interviews and press appeals, determined to keep Sonja's story from fading into obscurity. Comparisons to other European disappearances became a point of focus for both media and investigators. Patterns were sought among missing person cases, with attention to similarities in location, timing, and circumstances. While some cases provided context, none offered clear answers for Sonja's disappearance, emphasizing the unique and perplexing nature of her case. Throughout this period, the community's vigilance remained a critical factor. Even as immediate hope waned, people maintained awareness, often noticing details that might otherwise have gone unreported. The engagement of local residents, volunteers, and concerned citizens reinforced the importance of societal involvement in missing person cases and underscored the interconnectedness of public concern and investigative work. The cold case status did not signify abandonment. Law enforcement remained committed, regularly reviewing evidence, maintaining records, and seeking new methods to uncover the truth. Occasional tips sparked hope, though many led to dead ends. Each effort reinforced the painstaking dedication required when dealing with unresolved disappearances. As time went on, Sonja Engelbrecht's story became emblematic of the challenges inherent in missing person investigations. The passage of time complicated memory, eroded physical evidence, and magnified the emotional strain on those connected to her. Yet it also highlighted the perseverance of investigators, the resilience of family, and the power of community vigilance. Even decades later, Sonja's disappearance continued to resonate with the public. Documentaries, news retrospectives, and online forums kept her story alive, ensuring that new generations remained aware of the mystery. Her case stood as a somber reminder of the fragile nature of security, the importance of rapid investigative response, and the enduring human desire for answers in the face of uncertainty. The cold case years, while challenging and often disheartening, laid the foundation for future developments. By maintaining meticulous records, revisiting leads, and keeping the story in the public eye, investigators in the community ensured that the possibility of resolution, however remote, remained alive. Sonja Engelbrecht's absence continued to weigh heavily on Munich, a city that had once been her home, and her story became a lasting symbol of hope, perseverance, and the enduring search for truth. In 2020, more than 25 years after Sonja Engelbrecht's disappearance, a discovery reignited both hope and sorrow. Skeletal remains were found in a secluded area on the outskirts of Munich, a location that had long been searched but had previously yielded no results. The find sent shockwaves through the community and marked a pivotal moment in the decades-long investigation. The remains were carefully recovered by forensic specialists, each bone handled with precision and respect. The site itself told little of the circumstances, offering no immediate answers about how Sonja had come to be there. For investigators, it represented both a breakthrough and a reminder of the mystery that had endured for so long. DNA testing confirmed the identity of the remains as Sonja Engelbrecht. The confirmation was both devastating and a relief, proof that she had been found. Yet confirmation of her death intensified the grief of her family and friends. The emotional impact was profound. Years of uncertainty and hope converged into a stark reality that was impossible to ignore. Authorities renewed their investigative efforts with vigor. Modern forensic techniques unavailable in 1995 were employed to analyze the remains and surrounding evidence. Forensic anthropologists examined bone structure, trauma patterns, and environmental effects, searching for clues that could provide insight into the final moments of her life. Each detail, however small, was meticulously documented and evaluated. The family and public reacted with a mix of grief, shock, and a desire for answers. Vigils were held, media coverage renewed, and online communities engaged in discussions, theories, and remembrances. The discovery highlighted both the tragedy and the enduring human interest in Sonja's story. Friends recalled memories of her life, sharing stories that reinforced her personality and the life that had been lost. Investigators faced the challenge of interpreting evidence after decades. Environmental changes, decomposition, and the passage of time complicated analysis. Every lead was examined cautiously, with the understanding that the evidence would be scrutinized for both accuracy and relevance. Despite the difficulties, the discovery provided renewed energy to the investigation, emphasizing the importance of persistence in solving long-standing cases. Public awareness and media coverage played a significant role in the aftermath of the discovery. News outlets reported extensively, detailing the recovery, DNA confirmation, and family statements. While some coverage bordered on sensational, it kept the case in the public eye and encouraged those with potential information to come forward. Social media platforms also became spaces for discussion, remembrance, and mobilization, connecting people with shared interest in seeking justice. The discovery also prompted a reassessment of previous investigative conclusions. Officers revisited old reports, reanalyzed witness accounts, and compared past leads with newly available forensic data. The juxtaposition of historical records and modern technology created an opportunity to re-examine the narrative of Sonja's disappearance with fresh eyes. Forensic teams attempted to determine potential causes of death, examining trauma evidence and contextual clues. Each hypothesis was tested against the available information, though many questions remained unanswered. The remains confirmed the worst. Fears of the family, but also reinforced the importance of scientific and investigative rigor in approaching long unsolved cases. The emotional landscape for the family was complex. Relief mingled with grief. Closure intersected with lingering questions. Statements made in interviews and public appearances reflected both sorrow and determination as they continued to advocate for answers and justice for Sonja. The renewed attention to the case ensured that the tragedy would not fade from collective memory. In the broader community, the discovery prompted reflection on the nature of missing person cases and the societal responsibility to remain vigilant. It reinforced the importance of record-keeping, investigative persistence, and technological advancement in uncovering truths long obscured by time. Ultimately, the 2020 discovery of Sonja Engelbrecht's remains marked a turning point. It transformed decades of uncertainty into a clearer, though still incomplete, understanding of her fate. The event galvanized investigators, reinforced public interest, and deepened the emotional resonance of her story, ensuring that her life and the quest for answers would remain central in Munich and beyond for years to come. Following the discovery of Sonja Engelbrecht's remains in 2020, investigators intensified their efforts, leveraging modern forensic technology and new investigative techniques to uncover answers that had remained elusive for decades. The case, once constrained by the limitations of 1995, now benefited from advances in DNA analysis, digital record-keeping, and forensic anthropology. Experts re-examined the skeletal remains with meticulous care. Forensic anthropologists studied bone structure, signs of trauma, and environmental effects that could provide insight into the circumstances surrounding her death. The goal was to piece together a timeline, identifying when she might have entered the location where her remains were found and what events may have transpired thereafter. DNA profiling became a central tool. Investigators revisited evidence collected from the original scene and integrated it with contemporary methods, including mitochondrial DNA analysis and comparisons with national databases. These techniques provided higher resolution and allowed for more precise identification of potential biological connections, which could lead to suspects or clarify the sequence of events. Investigators also analyzed the area where the remains were found. Geographic profiling helped assess how Sonja may have traveled through the city or surrounding regions, considering possible routes, concealment points, and locations of interest. Environmental changes over 25 years complicated this work. Yet experts employed historical maps, satellite imagery, and local knowledge to reconstruct the landscape of 1995. Old witness statements were re-examined in light of new evidence. Investigators cross-referenced accounts, identifying consistencies and discrepancies that had previously gone unnoticed. This process illuminated potential areas for further inquiry and suggested avenues that might not have been considered during the initial investigation. Theories about potential perpetrators were revisited. Profilers assessed the behavioral patterns that might explain why Sonja was targeted, considering motives, opportunity, and prior offenses in the region. This comprehensive approach aimed to narrow down suspects and generate actionable leads, even though the passage of time had blurred many direct connections. Technological tools also extended to data analysis. Tip lines, social media leads, and public appeals were integrated into databases that allowed investigators to track patterns and connections. This integration of digital technology represented a significant advancement over the manual, paper-based processes used in 1995, enhancing both efficiency and accuracy. Collaboration across agencies became crucial. Local, regional, and national law enforcement shared information, ensuring that any relevant cases or patterns were considered. International cooperation was also explored, given the possibility of cross-border movement or connections to other disappearances during the same period. Despite the passage of decades, investigators remained committed to uncovering the truth. Each new piece of evidence, however small, was carefully documented and analyzed. Forensic breakthroughs were communicated with caution, ensuring that findings could withstand scrutiny and contribute meaningfully to the case. The renewed focus also prompted public engagement. Authorities encouraged anyone with knowledge of the events surrounding Sonja's disappearance to come forward. Media coverage amplified these appeals, and online communities mobilized to share information, theories, and support for the family. The combination of public vigilance and scientific rigor underscored a multifaceted approach to cold case investigation. While many questions remained unanswered, the period following the discovery of Sonja's remains marked the most active phase of investigation since her disappearance. The integration of modern forensic science, revisited witness accounts, geographic and behavioral analysis, and community involvement represented a comprehensive strategy aimed at resolving a mystery that had persisted for over 25 years. Every step taken in this advanced investigative phase was driven by a single goal: to honor Sonja Engelbrecht's life by uncovering the truth, holding those responsible accountable, and providing her family and community with the closure they had long sought. The work continued tirelessly, a testament to both human perseverance and the power of scientific and investigative innovation in solving long-standing mysteries. In the wake of the renewed investigation, experts turned their attention to the psychological and criminal aspects of Sonja Engelbrecht's case. Profilers and criminologists sought to understand the mindset and behavior of the potential perpetrator, drawing from patterns observed in similar cases across Munich and Europe during the 1990s. Behavioral profiling became a central tool in constructing possible scenarios. Investigators analyzed how an offender might have approached Sonja, considering factors such as opportunity, location familiarity, and prior behavior in similar crimes. The goal was to identify characteristics that could narrow the suspect pool, providing leads in a case where physical evidence was limited. Criminal psychologists examined the social and environmental context. Munich in the 1990s was a city in transition, with urban areas providing both community connections and potential anonymity. Profilers assessed how the city's geography, routines, and social behaviors might have influenced both Sonja's movements and the actions of a potential offender. Experts also studied comparable cases of disappearances and assaults from the same period. Patterns emerged, including offender behaviors, victim selection, and concealment strategies. While no direct connections were established, these patterns offered insights into the possible motives and methods employed, helping investigators prioritize investigative avenues. Interviews with friends, family, and acquaintances provided additional psychological context. Profilers considered Sonja's habits, social circles, and lifestyle to understand how an offender might have targeted her. These assessments balanced the victim's behavior with external factors, aiding in constructing realistic scenarios of the disappearance. Forensic psychology also played a role in interpreting the recovered remains. Experts analyzed trauma patterns, environmental effects, and possible interactions with the perpetrator. Each piece of evidence was considered not only for its physical implications, but also for what it could reveal about the offender's intent, control, and method of concealment. Criminologists highlighted the importance of behavioral consistency. Offenders often display predictable patterns over time, which could be instrumental in connecting Sonja's case to other unsolved incidents. This approach required careful cross-referencing of historical records, police files, and regional databases to identify potential overlaps and suspects. Investigators considered both opportunistic and premeditated scenarios. The analysis examined whether Sonja had been targeted randomly or if the offender had prior knowledge of her routines. Each hypothesis was evaluated against known evidence, witness accounts, and geographical context to construct a comprehensive profile. The integration of psychological and criminal analysis added a new dimension to the investigation. Beyond physical evidence, understanding the possible motivations, behaviors, and characteristics of the perpetrator became critical. This approach aimed to transform a decades-old mystery into a solvable puzzle, providing actionable insights for law enforcement. Throughout this process, the family and public remained informed, with careful communication, ensuring that sensitive psychological assessments were contextualized and respectful. The goal was to advance the investigation without sensationalizing the tragedy, maintaining focus on justice and truth. By combining behavioral profiling, forensic psychology, and criminology with traditional investigative methods, the case of Sonja Engelbrecht entered a phase that integrated science, expertise, and human insight. Each analysis brought the investigation closer to understanding the events of that night, the behavior of the offender, and the circumstances that led to the loss of a young life. While questions remained, The psychological and criminal examination provided critical tools for uncovering the truth and guiding ongoing investigative efforts. As the investigation into Sonja Engelbrecht's disappearance and subsequent discovery of her remains progressed, the case remained officially open, classified as an ongoing investigation with unresolved elements. Law enforcement agencies continued to pursue leads, integrating the latest forensic techniques with historical records, witness accounts, and public tips. Police maintained detailed timelines, combining data from the original investigation with insights gleaned from modern technology. Geographic profiling, DNA databases, and behavioral analysis were all used to reassess previous conclusions and prioritize new investigative avenues. Despite decades passing, authorities remained committed to uncovering definitive answers about the circumstances surrounding her death. The family continued to play an active role, providing information, cooperating with investigators, and advocating for transparency. Their efforts ensured that Sonja's story remained in the public consciousness and that the investigation received both attention and resources necessary for thorough analysis. Public engagement has been a critical component of the ongoing investigation. Social media campaigns, news reports, and community outreach initiatives encourage anyone with knowledge to come forward. Tips, sightings, and historical anecdotes continue to be examined, offering the possibility that even minor details could provide breakthroughs. Despite the persistent efforts, many questions remain unanswered. Investigators have yet to identify a definitive suspect or establish the exact circumstances of her death. The case's unresolved nature highlights the complexity and challenges inherent in missing person investigations, particularly those that extend over decades. Authorities remain vigilant in cross-referencing Sonja's case with other unsolved disappearances and criminal activity in the region. Collaborative efforts with neighboring jurisdictions, national agencies, and international organizations aim to detect patterns or connections that might otherwise go unnoticed. The ongoing nature of the investigation also emphasizes the evolving role of technology in solving cold cases. Tools such as advanced DNA analysis, digital mapping, and forensic reconstruction provide capabilities that were not available at the time of her disappearance. Each new application of technology brings the potential to unlock insights previously inaccessible. For the community and family, the enduring mystery carries a mixture of frustration, hope, and reflection. Public vigils, commemorations, and media retrospectives serve as reminders of both the human cost of unresolved cases and the societal responsibility to pursue justice. The story of Sonja Engelbrecht, while partially illuminated by the discovery of her remains, continues to pose profound questions. Who was responsible? What exactly happened on that fateful night? These unanswered questions maintain the case's prominence in both investigative and public spheres, ensuring that her life and disappearance remain deeply felt. Ultimately, the current status of the investigation underscores a critical truth. Even after decades, dedicated investigative work, combined with public vigilance and technological advancements, holds the potential to resolve mysteries once thought unsolvable. Sonja Engelbrecht's case exemplifies both the challenges and the enduring commitment required to seek justice for missing persons, reinforcing the importance of persistence, compassion, and scientific rigor in the pursuit of truth. The story of Sonja Engelbrecht concludes not with all answers, but with reflections on the impact of her life, disappearance, and the enduring quest for truth. While her remains were discovered decades after she vanished, many questions remain unanswered, reminding us of both the fragility and resilience of human life. Her case serves as a sobering reminder of the importance of awareness, safety, and vigilance. Communities and families are encouraged to maintain communication, be observant of their surroundings, and support missing person initiatives. Authorities stress that early reporting and rapid response can be crucial, illustrating how timely action affects outcomes in disappearance cases. The perseverance of Sonja's family, friends, and investigators highlights the power of human determination. Even when faced with decades of uncertainty, they continued to advocate for answers, leveraging modern tools and public engagement. Their efforts demonstrate the profound role that community and familial support play in the pursuit of justice. The case also underscores the evolution of forensic science and investigative methods. From limited tools in 1995 to sophisticated DNA analysis, geographic profiling, and behavioral science today, the investigation reflects how technology can provide new hope for cold cases. Sonja's story exemplifies how advances in science and persistent investigative efforts intersect to shed light on unresolved mysteries. Psychologically, the case illustrates the deep emotional toll on families and communities. Grief, hope, and resilience intertwine, shaping the ways people remember and honor those lost. Sonja's memory has become a symbol of both tragedy and the enduring human spirit, inspiring others to remain vigilant and compassionate. On a societal level, her story calls attention to the broader issue of missing persons in Europe and beyond. It encourages improved systems for reporting, investigation, and public awareness, while fostering empathy for those affected. Sonja's experience reminds us that each disappearance represents a life, a family, and a community profoundly impacted. For viewers and the public, the story invites reflection on the value of human connection, the importance of listening, and the responsibility of communities to protect and support one another. It also illustrates the unpredictable nature of life and the need to cherish everyday moments with loved ones. Though the case remains partially unresolved, the enduring investigation offers hope. Each advancement in technology, each tip from the public, and each renewed examination of evidence brings the possibility of answers and closure. Sonja Engelbrecht's story, while tragic, continues to inspire vigilance, scientific curiosity, and emotional resilience. The life and disappearance of Sonja Engelbrecht remain a poignant narrative of hope, loss, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Her story is a testament to human endurance, the importance of community, and the ongoing commitment required to seek justice. By remembering her life and learning from her case, society strengthens its capacity for empathy, vigilance, and determination, ensuring that even the most challenging mysteries are met with unwavering resolve and compassion.